Chick-fil-A burrito for breakfast.
Chick-fil-A burritos. Those are good. Okay. Why it's like I just had it working. So, okay, so how was it going to Chick-fil-A? Kind of keep talking. Tell me the story of it a little bit till I can check.
Woke up earlier than usual. You know, wanted some good food other than some at-home food. Decided Chick-fil-A was the best option nearest the highway. So I'm coming from Ahwatukee, so off of Ray Road, then hopped on the I-10 and the 101.
Nice.
So it was just, the most comfortable option.
Cool. Okay. All right. So that's good. We should be good. All right. I'm going to take that out of my ear. All right. Well, hi.
Yeah.
So hello. I'm Greg.
Yeah.
I just spelled it 2 G's like egg because I'm a little scrambled. So if as we're talking and as we're asking questions, like just my if I ask you something that seems a little out of left field, it's not because my brain doesn't see a connection.
Yeah.
But I thank you for taking time to kind of talk with me today, and then so let's start with some basics of. So tell me the class you're in and kind of how you kind of what your understanding of learning communities is at this point in the game. So.
Okay. I'm in the general business class and ELA class that's structured more for AI on the English side. I definitely feel like more than the business.
Okay.
And my understanding of learning communities is that they're places of development for an individual like myself who strives, think outside the box and have critical thinking skills, to better off his outcome at a university that I transferred to.
Nice. And then how did you find out about learning communities as a place to start?
Know the exact definition of learning community.
Okay, so you've so learning communities where we've got these 2 courses, right? So how did you find out that your 2 courses would be enrolled, that you'd have both professors, and that sort of thing?
It was kind of like coincidence. I got signed up for the class. I didn't know they were like intertwined classes.
Gotcha.
I learned that like the first day of school.
So so you signed up on your own, or you talked with an advisor?
I talked with an advisor, and me and my dad worked on signing up together. I didn't know what I want to study yet, but now I'm like very definitive. So it actually is going to benefit me in the long run.
Oh, and what's your major? Just as basic information, Like what's your hope or
my
trajectory?
My trajectory is I'm going to transfer to more of a target school for finance.
Okay.
Investment banking. I know that's like the pinnacle of finance, very hard to get to, but I have like good connections. I'm probably going to do a 4-year trajectory next year at whatever university I transfer to, and pursue a job, like a Wall Street-esque job, as you would call it.
So you're in kind of the gen ed phase of, like, this is your first semester, you said, but you're in a business class, and then we're dealing with AI as a theme in that class. So you talk with an advisor, is what I'm hearing. You talk with an advisor, they're like, these 2 classes will work, and it just so happens that they need to be paired, so you're in both these things.
Yes.
So did the advisor mention learning communities or anything, or just kind of say, here are 2 classes that work for you?
Yeah, here are the 2 classes that fit best with your schedule, because I have math starting at 8 a.m. in the morning on Wednesdays and Mondays. So kind of just worked out like that.
So Wednesday's a full day for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have DECA, so.
Yeah. Nice. Well, okay. So once you get into the class, so tell me what the first day experience was when you're like, wait, what's going on?
Business, not so much. Because I understand like there's certain structures and guidelines you have to meet more so, and it seems like that for business. But definitely when Mr. Fernandez walked in the room, I felt like, whoa, when he started displaying information on the screen, because I was just like, this is not your average teacher. This is nothing like I've gone through in public high school. I mean, I went to a private school that produced lots of Ivy League kids, among other things, and it felt more like that, like critical thinking, like presentation-wise, like seeing the illusions kind of, and work, like just kind of thinking more so outside the box, and it, prolonged my thinking, kind of redeveloped some of the thought training patterns I feel like I used to garner more so.
Okay. And then, so when you came in, they teach at the same time. They're like they're both in the classroom, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like when you realized you were going to have both professors there, possibly for the whole time?
I was actually quite happy because that means I get more, information dissolved into my own brain system, uh, and I feel like it's better, outlook-wise, because I feel like I'm learning more when two professionals are, in the same room. They're not only agreeing with communication, they're also contradicting each other a little bit, which is also beneficial because you need that sort of feedback to, gain development.
So you're in there and they're kind of going back and forth on a topic and they don't always agree.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's a good thing. It's not like, oh, mom and dad are bickering or whatever. It's like so how is that benefiting you as a student to see those kind of multiple perspectives?
It allows for more personal inference.
Okay. Talk me through that,
Yeah, which I see like personal inference as being like when they allow us to, for example, view ratings on an assignment off of like an Amazon book.
Okay.
Then you have to decide which ones you think, are reputable. They'll give you some guidelines, but it's really up to you to decide that. Then you explain your own reasoning. Then you kind of draw a conclusion. And I'm a finance guy, so kind of with my thought train, like I've kind of seen this play out, I've done some of my own independent research even before getting into school, and it kind of makes me like think outside of the box and see like, I feel like corruption's a big thing among other things, and certain like people hiding their money, and there's certain like elements like Britain withdrawing from NATO, then a majority Muslim population moving over, gaining government power. So it kind of just and Middle Eastern countries sit on lots of money, so I feel like it's kind of just a devaluation of the U.S. currency that's about to happen.
So when you're in the classroom and these kind of things, some of these things are coming up, or they've got an activity. What's one example from class where like they didn't disagree and it kind of helped you expand your thinking a little bit, or didn't fully align? Or
let's see here. Well, I feel like Mr. Fernandez was discussing the Chinese hacking one day about like like in the government election, how they like tap their phones kind of stuff.
Gotcha, yeah.
And Mrs. Nolenbiller didn't really know much about it, so like she didn't like necessarily like, she's like, oh, this happens all the time, and he's like, but it doesn't happen in these type of ways. So it kind of just like an added like element of just like, conversation that helps you like kind of like realize, oh, you can kind of think deeper. I wouldn't say it's like always necessarily disagreeing, but it's just like the added element of having two, professionals in the same room at the same time creates, an enhanced learning environment for someone like me, because I'm a person with ADHD and I need lots of engagement. And, I was really smart high school, kind of regret some parts of it, but then like I like realized like, oh, you can engage your brain this way and like have like a unique capability.
Nice.
So aspects.
So you're finding that kind of back and forth between them helps you stay engaged in the class because it feels a little more conversational than lecture. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I feel like curriculum wise, like there's certain stuff like I feel like is relevant way more so than others, and I pay way more fond attention. And when these when the conversations are being put in place between these two professionals or like between the class, I'm way more engaged overall because it allows for critical, independent thinking.
Nice. So that's those two being engaged as part of the learning community. You also have the same students in both classes, so it's like that big chunk of time. What is it like as far as interacting with other students in the class?
For me, like on the personals?
Yeah, like when you come into the class and you're like, oh, I'm going to be with them for 3 hours, not just an hour and 15 minutes. Like I'm not just like, because are any of them in your math class that's before?
Yeah, one of them.
One of them?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it would be different if all of them were still in your math class too?
Yeah, a tad bit.
Okay, so kind of talk through that difference, I guess, between going from the math class to the second class versus second to third.
Yeah. You know, my math class has a more broadened age group, I'd say.
Okay.
Like, if we're talking about like physical, you know,
Well, and just kind of how you connect with the other students, maybe.
you know, we get to pick our seats in both classes. The teacher's more so teaching in math class versus allowing for our personal thought and opinion. Which
Gotcha.
I feel like I'm trying to get really engaged in this class, or some other students. But I just find inherently math is more boring than, you know, ELA or like the combined courses together. And I just feel like conversation, like of course they have to meet like curriculum guidelines and make it so it's for everyone to understand, but I feel like kind of connecting with my peers can, like, somewhat, not trying to be rude, is more like inherently boring for me, because I like more like critical thinking, like real world relevance, like
So,
let's go, like
so if
let's
you're
get
in
at it.
your,
Yeah.
gotcha. If you're in your math class,
Yeah.
is it harder to just strike up a conversation in that class
No, I think
with other people? Is that
yeah.
what you mean?
No, I feel like it's easier on simpler topics, but when I'm trying to, like, you know, display critical thinking skills or talk about something that makes me like want to talk about it and like develop conversation topics and then elaborate on the facts and details of it. I don't necessarily feel like a lot of people have those skills. Maybe in like my English and business class. Math class is just like I kind of sit in the back of the room because it's a pretty easy class for me.
Okay. So in your math class, you're sitting in the back of the room. There's not as much, you're not necessarily connecting with the other classmates as well. Is that what you're saying? Or like not about things that
it's not about
it's
math.
not as deep.
It's not about math. It's about more like what happened this weekend. You know, how was your family? You know, like.
And when you're in the learning community, like you've got a longer time with those students. How's it been connecting with them and kind of continuing to grow with them? Even though we're only halfway through the semester, but how have you been? How has been building friendships or student relationships, that kind of thing, gone?
It's been good and bad. I'm a competitive person, so I like, you know, displaying like my certain information on topics and opinions and inferences, which like kind of I feel like turns a less person that cares about, you know, like attention to detail and other things regarding like information, and doesn't really have like the characteristic of wanting to like go more in depth off. But if there's certain people that do more so, and you know, I love like kind of like hearing feedback from them because that's how I grow as a person.
So you've been able to have more ongoing conversations with people in the learning community versus the math class?
Yeah.
Okay. And like, have you gotten to know them as people too, in a deeper way than the math class?
I would say more so less.
Okay. What makes you say that?
People. Like on the personal level, just we don't really have that much free time in order to do so. Like we're always doing something, like whether it's an assignment or
in math or in the LC?
In the learning community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you haven't. So do you feel like you know? Let me ask it this way. That kind of pulls it back from like, do you know their dog's name? But do you know? You know. Like do you know more people's names in the LC than you do in the math class?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to gauge, like, I'm not necessarily like deep, intimate relationship, friendships kind of thing. But like, do you feel like you're getting more community from the actual learning community? Or is it like in math, you're kind of getting one type of, or help me understand it?
Yeah, I'm getting more of an educational community in the learning community. I'm developing more of a, I'm not going to like attempt to make contact with these people outside of school, but you could view it as like I'm viewing a more out of school connection with the people in math.
Okay. Do you have you connected with anyone in the LC, like text chats to check on homework or anything like that, or through Canvas?
I have one kid that we did like an assignment on the beginning of the year, and I added on Snapchat. And then there was another project too, and I had 3 group members, and we all add each other an iMessage.
Okay, and how often do you guys talk there?
It was just only about the project. Okay. But Snapchat, they can view like your main story if you post it on your main story, which I don't.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And anything like that in the math class?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I developed a friendship with the kid, and we have like we follow each other on Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So as you're kind of thinking about the experience in the learning community, so you've talked about the professors talking to each other. You've said, I'm gaining I'm getting a chance to kind of talk about deeper things in the learning community. You're getting to do collaborative assignments in the learning community, and that's not happening in the math either?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's just my table, because like I mean, I do carry them like on all the quizzes. I'm always the one that does all the work and stuff. Okay. But yeah.
But not quite as, like, you're not, you've got one person on Instagram, but nothing ongoing, nothing that you guys had to do kind of outside of school. Okay.
Not even no whiteboard work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys aren't doing team whiteboard work in that class?
Not in math class.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing that in the LC?
No, but we're collaborating like on many different projects and presentations using like Google Drive, and like there are certain applications.
Okay. And then how are you, as you, have you started planning for next semester yet?
Oh, yes and no.
Okay. Did you in either of the classes talk with any of the other students about trying to line up like your spring schedule?
Not necessarily. I have friends that are not in my classes that I'm trying to line up a schedule with, but with like the timetable of my transfer, kind of makes it hard because I have to go visit, I already visited that Miss Knutson. She's a counselor, and I have to talk to I have an education consultant, so it's just like I'm gonna have to do more classes than required to be able to like have a better chance of where I want to be. So I haven't really decided my schedule yet.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that had been if you guys had got there yet. And you're kind of the first person I've talked to who's in the middle of an LC right now. So I'm trying to think of like how because sometimes it's harder to see. How does kind of having 3 hours with the same students, I've had you compare it and like the two teachers, two professors in the same class. How's that compare to like some of your high school learning?
Oh, it engages me way more, so it makes me want to like have these teachers next semester in the same learning community more.
Okay.
So.
Do you feel Why do you say that?
Because it's actually interesting stuff. We're actually doing interesting, schoolwork. It's not just plain, plain you do this, you walk into this. There's added layers of elements to certain work we do, which is important for a person like me who's really trying to dive deep into his education.
Gotcha. Do you feel like you're connecting with the professors at a deeper level? Like, are you talking to them more often outside of class?
Yeah. Even during class, like, I had like a 10-minute conversation with Mr. Fernandez today. Like, I'm not just trying to walk through the motions, because he's a reputable guy, I feel like, in like what he does and his connections. So I was just asking about like advice, not only like regarding classwork, but like future outcomes and decisions I have to make.
And are you having those kind of same those kind of connecting conversations with your math professor or anyone? Did you have those in high school at all? Like at all similar?
There was really, there were some teachers that saw like my possibility, but I wasn't in the state of mind to apply myself.
Gotcha.
And it made it hard for them to want to help me. But in K through 8 school, a lot of the teachers were like very fond of me.
Gotcha.
More so, I feel like I had physical characteristics to show it too. Like I placed in the top 1.5% in the nation on like Iowa. You know what Iowa testing is? Yeah, I placed top 1.5%.
Nice.
So it was just like, in high school, I had COVID and, my mindset and, I was on the football team. So I felt like I couldn't, win the race that I walked for like 6 out of the 8 miles of it. You know what I mean? Because I kind of had realization towards the end of high school about like what needed to happen, and I just wasn't there.
And so do you think, so being in that class with Dr. Fernandez, you're having these deeper conversations and that's kind of happening in the middle of class. What makes those kind of conversations possible in that specific class, do you think?
Just like me feeling comfortable with him as a professor, him, answering all the questions I have, whether it's regarding specific information about the subject or information I'm conducting on my own, like independently. He just has that it's like a cushion kind of, like you're always going to bounce up in knowledge. You're not going to really, dive down the hole because he's not going to give you his own personal opinion and try to influence it. He's going to give you the facts regarding the information.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And are those kind of, so you found him, someone you can respect, you can have those longer conversations. Yeah. Does having that 3-hour block where he's not like the professor all by himself, does that make it easier to have those conversations? Does it make it harder? Is there a little more activity, or what do you think that environment does that allows for the conversation? Or do you think you would have had it anyways if you didn't have 3 hours of time with him?
If I didn't have 3 hours of time, I would have not known him more on like an intimate level, as you would call it. And he takes like people that actually want to apply themselves to what he's learning, and I feel like he internally holds them in higher regards, and I feel like that's the same for most professionals.
You just feel like he gives you respect.
Yeah, because I'm giving him much respect. I'm like the one that's raising my hand, one of the most or the most. I do feel like in class, and trying to go above and beyond. Same thing with Miss Viller. Like, I'm asking about her after school clubs. I joined one. Like,
nice.
So it's just like I feel like they do, like, in the eyes of them, want to help me out more, and that garners more, intellectual conversations about possibilities in my education currently.
So I hear you saying, like, I respect both these professors. Yeah. I'm getting a chance to really talk to them a little bit more one-on-one. I've got more time with them that might be allowing for that.
Yeah.
And them respecting me is part of that. Like, that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah.
When it comes to like in-class time, you and your classmates, what are some of the things in class that you and your classmates are doing that might be kind of, you've talked about kind of the learning side of it. What's some of the things in class you mentioned collaborative writing. What are the activities in class that are letting you guys interact more? What's the community side of being in class for 3 hours together look like?
I mean, people have charisma and jokes that they have, like inside jokes, among other things, and that does develop into the business world, I feel like, because, like, of course you don't want to go into business with your best friend, but you want to be surrounded by people who are, happy, joyful people, not just let's get the work done, let's grind,
Yeah. What's Alex Hormozy say? Don't think of it as best friends, think of it as allies, business allies.
Yeah. Like, there's personal time, and then there's business time, and you have to separate those two.
So when you're in the class and you've got that 3-hour block, do you feel like there's a little more time for that kind of rapport building, kind of, even if it's not business, like you get a little more joking because of the time together?
Yeah. Okay. Even though, like, everyone comes from, like, different walks of life, it seems like, in different, like, circumstances and different desires of, like, what they want and different understandings of how to get to where they want.
Yeah.
It does allow for, like, connection, because I am a funny guy, but, like, I strive to take academics serious and try and show that through academic excellence more so than ever before, because I understand what it takes. But, like, I feel like I don't know what they want to do in life, of course, but, like, they may be taking a personal aspect too serious or a school aspect too serious, and it's all about, I feel like, finding the correct balance.
And do you feel like if you compare the way you're interacting with those students in the double class in the learning community, do you feel like you get a little more of that balance than you do in the first class of the day?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. What's the texture? Like, what's the texture difference, or what do you think the factors are that make that difference in balance between the two?
Just the context of what we're there to do, and the rigor of the class. Like, it's math, like, more so like set in stone work. It's not really, creative, interpreted on your own thinking. And it allows for, like, deeper conversation and deeper thinking.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think through. So we've got two professors. You got your groups of students. With learning communities, so sometimes people will ask if the learning community would be the same if it weren't those teachers, or is there something about the way they interact that makes you feel more comfortable with interacting with them?
In English language arts, I'll use this as an example. Last year, I had a teacher's assistant, and, well, I think she was actually a student teacher.
Yeah.
And the English teacher who's been there at the school for many years, and they would argue over, you know, different what we should be doing in class and learning, and like he made it really boring. She wanted to make it really fun.
And you could sense them arguing, or they were in class like disagreeing.
She would talk behind his back, you know, and she would take certain, you know, kids to go do work in another class that was unoccupied.
Okay.
And it kind of just created like a stigma,
like this awkward power dynamic thing going on. Okay,
like, I don't want to do this. Like this is if this is what it's all about. Like, why am I here?
Gotcha. So you've got in that class. So you've had classrooms with multiple people who were in authority, sort of, but there was a little bit more hierarchy. With the learning community, they're more like standing shoulder to shoulder, and they generally get along. Their personality, like, are you finding like that they're those personality like them taking time to kind of develop that relationship might be one of the factors?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't see what's behind, you know, Beth and Miguel hanging out or whatever, but you can sense that they're not that they get along a little better.
Yeah, they do, and they, you know, they come from. I feel like they have good morals and values, and you know, they allow for their own philosophies, and they respect each other's philosophies regarding learning and communication, and it shows. You know, they don't argue. If they do have like some discrepancy, like the information that's being displayed, they work through it.
Okay. So you get to watch them talk through in a healthy way. Like, I'm not sure I agree with you here. What what are the things they do in that conversation? Like, if you can remember.
The only time it's really happened is scheduling, but
what did that look like?
She just didn't know how like all this would align with like the specific project we were working on. And it kind of went into Miguel's class, and you know what? He's like a very easygoing type of guy. He's like, you know what? It's fine. Just you could all let it happen. Like this, you know, we're in this together kind of mindset.
Cool. Like, and you could kind of see whatever words he was using. Like, you could see that was the approach.
And like I feel like she's the one that tends to get more stressed out. That's just my own personal inference, but you know, he kind of like counteracts that very well. But she's not at all like a stressed out person.
So like she's not high strung.
She just has lots of classes to teach, so she has to make sure everything's like right. So
a concern. Like so what I hear you saying is a concern was brought up. The other teacher heard the concern and went, huh. And instead of going, man, that doesn't matter, kind of went, we can figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. As opposed to like an example, like the example you saw in high school with the student teacher, where it's like maybe someone brought up a concern.
Just dissolved. It was a dissolved relationship that kept dissolving more and more.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
So let's imagine for a minute. So, you know, so you've got already like those two people together in a classroom, and we've been doing a little bit of talking with like in comparison to your math class, if. You know, knowing what you do about your math teacher or your professor, and then the other two, how would you see your experience changing if suddenly now it was all three? Like
all three together.
Yeah, just to kind of, if they expanded from the two classes, and what do you think that would change about like the math course, or what do you think that would change about the other two?
With the same students as well?
If we assumed that it was all three had all the same students, so now you've got 4.5 hours with all of those. Like, what do you think what would be the shuffle that you'd think? We're just imagining. So,
I feel like of course it'd be longer days. I feel like I'd need more of a break, but for the academic side, I feel like it would allow more critical thinking and the application to real world problems, because you could combine math and maybe now that we have an understanding of like math, like certain like equations and problems could be applied, and then you can use, you know, our mathematics skills that we learned to solve them. So I feel like it would actually be quite beneficial if done in the right way.
So you can see like using the math to like help anchor some of the, you know, business problems, finance problems, that sort of thing could be interesting.
But I would have a concern of like it being different from like different rigor of like everywhere else, kind of, because I don't really see the block scheduling like in learning communities that much. But I think it would allow for way more insight. if done the correct way.
How do you think, so say you put, imagine if you paired Professor Fernandez with your math professor instead. Yeah. How do you, like thinking of what you know about those two personalities, how do you think they would get along?
I feel like it would go pretty well. He's an easygoing math teacher. Yeah, I wouldn't see any problems really with it. I would just feel like she would have a hard time tying in math to what he's trying to teach with AI and like the ELA class we have structured, just because you know she's a professor that's fresh out of college. It seems like Miss Turner, you know, and I just feel like it would like be a lot to handle. So you might need more of a like a developed professional to like maybe help tie it in. But that's just like my point of view. Of course, everyone's brain works different. I'm just talking about like the general ideal person and professor.
I gotcha. Yeah.
From my own experience.
So if okay, cool. And then so if you, where do you see overlap happening in the content? So you've got them kind of framing the content, theming the content around AI a little bit. How do you see kind of the writing informing business? Let's do that one first. So where does the English side of things or the writing side of things, how does that inform what's happening on the business side as far as the content of the classes goes?
Oh, it allows for more, like when Miss Nonviller goes out of her way to ask like certain questions or write down stuff on the board, she allows for me to creatively articulate answers in my own brain. Like I have a lot of understanding about how business works too, from like prior connections and information I've gained. But she allows like more articulated response just by like having like Miguel's teachings coincide with her teachings. So like I'll give a more sophisticated answer than I would probably if I didn't feel like the environment of the class was to give like a plain answer.
And give a business answer. Yeah. But having it with the English, you give a more substantial like English business answer.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that she might actually, so what I hear you saying is she might be getting a more developed or possibly clearer or more detailed answer because it's paired with English, where you're already in that kind of verbal processing mode or language processing, writing processing mode.
Yes.
Okay. How do you see it working from business to English?
Just understanding key characteristics of what's going on in the world. I feel like real world relevance is important, not just textbook, going on with textbook. But understanding what's going on in the world can help, you create certain philosophies or ideas about what Mr. Fernandez is presenting in English more so, which creates, a deeper sense of elaboration in response. And I feel like I can see, like I'm a big person that likes to see illusions in life, and like if someone's going with the current, I want to know why. If not, I'm gonna swim against.
Gotcha.
So I need to know like everything, and like I like finite details more so, and it helps. It helps with that. It helps bounce the facts with the creative thinking Miguel's class provides. Of course, he gives you like real world problems, but it's more so like, how do you see it under your eyes? Yeah.
All right, we're getting, I don't want to hold you too long, but I want to ask you a couple kind of questions that, where if you're framing your experiences, the benefits you're getting from the learning community, the mashup course, having two professors. So if you're talking to new students, what was the adjustment period to having the two professors, to having the combined courses? What were some of the adjustments and what was that like?
It was actually like not that big of an adjustment for me, because walking in the room, it was an excitement factor, like learning like, oh, like these two classes relate. It's not just gonna be like the boring classes I had, like regarding teachings in public high school. Because like when Miguel, I think it was one of the first days, he walked in and he started talking about this past history. Then he started talking about what's going on in the world. And then he asked us questions about, I don't have any questions or like opinions regarding anything. and allow for like, I was like, wow, I can actually be open-minded, which I really loved, but still get like my credits because, you know, that's a very big thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you hear from any kind of back channel from other students about like, oh, like this was a little weird, or about any adjustments they've had to make, or have they said anything positive or negative as far as the pairing of the courses?
I don't even think many of them like really understand like how the pairing really like can affect them if they apply themselves. But I don't really necessarily talk to them about it. I just have like an inference that certain people walk the motions more so than the others. But I feel like it's developed. I've already seen development in other people as well as myself, and quite cool.
Cool. There was, so if you were, okay, so you said there's not really as much adjustment. Like it's like these courses sound like they're going hand in hand nicely. I usually don't get that response in the LCs I teach. I teach like English and math and English and chemistry, and people are like, "What are you doing to us?" So it's nice to hear that some of the LCs are like, "Yeah, this is good." Like we usually have like a couple weeks of people trying to adjust. So what if we're shifting audiences? So or not? No, don't shift audience. If you're saying my LC experience has been pretty chill so far. It's been good, generally positive. What are the reasons if you were talking to someone who's who's considering enrolling in an LC? What are the reasons you would say you should do this type of course?
You want to develop like open-mindedness and like think outside of the box and develop, you know, critical thinking. I feel like it really helps, you know, business majors more so, and people, you know, in front office finance more so than like back office and dudes that just have to like, you know, scribble stuff down on their more rigid term. Like it could help develop like a business plan where like you see the opportunity and you take it because you understand the trend before it's the trend, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
And
you get that from being in the learning community, you feel like?
I feel like I get that more train of thought.
Okay, what about the learning community do you feel like does that?
Just like the overall element of AI being included in it, that's a relatively new thing. So just off the bat, and the amount of presentations we do and group projects and diving deep into like markets for such like a freshman level class, I feel like is quite important and interesting.
Cool. Nice. Shifting audiences to like other professors. So we'll do two parts of this set. First, if there are professors who are considering building learning communities like they did, what would you recommend they make sure and have if they're building like if a professor's thinking, or try this way, why should a professor build learning communities like this? If that makes sense, like what would you tell a professor?
It's gonna help your students develop more useful skills that they can apply in the long run in a better thinking pattern. As I feel like you guys should apply real world relevance in your learning community more so than like just a structured, you know, curriculum.
Gotcha.
Allow for more independent development.
So do you think the learning communities allow the professor some flexibility in how they present the content because they got to adapt a little bit to the other class?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And it helps us.
And it helps the students. Okay. And I heard you say it also makes for a little more active classroom because it's more conversational. That's kind of throwing back 30 minutes. But all right. And then what would you, like if you're talking to the professor, what are things you think as a student a professor should make sure and do ahead of time if they're going to have a learning community like this? Or what do you think is the preparation for on the professor side for a good learning community? And I know you're just barely into it. You're halfway through the semester, but you know,
just a general gist. Dive deep into what your interests are and apply them to your what you're teaching, like ELA or something like that. Like, have you worked with professionals in a certain niche market or industry that you can help garner your specific, you know, information and class structure to? Then allow for like thinking on our end of like how your past connections and prior knowledge can help us in our future.
Mm.
So like Miss Nolanviller connects your real estate, like other things. She uses her own examples, which helps us. Miguel, he does a lot of AI work. Some big boys in the AI industry.
Yeah.
So having like writing down what you're good at, knowing what you're good at, applying it, and you developing the course before it's taught. And also, like, I feel like you should assign certain assignments that just come up, like the real world current news, like assignments regarding that. It depends on like what of course your class is, but I just feel like you should tailor some assignments more so to like what's going on in the real world.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Last kind of shift.
Yeah.
If you're talking, so we've talked students, we've talked professors. If we go above all of them and we're talking to like presidents of the college or of colleges or something like that. So they're the ones thinking like, should we pay professors more or less or the same? Is there enough benefit to students to kind of pour into this program? What would you say to a president is the value or the give and take of a learning community if you're talking to like big decision makers?
I think if you want your students to have better outcomes, especially with I feel like the fifth revolution of the world being AI, and develop better connections and, really apply themselves in the industry they're trying to get into, you should develop learning communities because they allow for the average person not to just think like the average person. They allow for more in-depth, elaborated responses, which I feel like more companies are looking for nowadays versus the old days.
Gotcha. So what I hear you saying
it gives you an edge, an advantage, like above the rest.
Because it takes you out of a traditional mindset of like, well, this is my course.
Yeah.
And you're saying it kind of pushes people to think beyond like, well, here's the course I'm taking right now, and then here's the next course I'm going to take, and so kind of shifting that forcing people to make those connections
for
across.
Engagement in your brain that's actually interesting, and I feel like if you're engaged in something that's interesting, you're going to remember it better.
Gotcha. That's good. That's cool. There was one part of that you were framing. Oh yeah. So one last question, I think. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you took an LC a learning community that happened to be connected to your field of interest, your major, your focus, what do you think the benefits are for people who would take those in areas that aren't their main interest? Like if you had, if Miguel didn't talk AI, but you still had to take an English 101, if it was connected to the math, we talked a little bit if it's connected to the math, but if you think of courses that like you're gonna have to take, but they're not like business or AI oriented, what benefits do you see of having other courses mashed up that aren't your specialization or don't lean into the things you're already interested in?
I feel like it adds components that, they may not seem intertwined, but they could be a blessing in disguise because you never really know. Like, it's hard to analyze your own thought train. And when you throw yourself in shoes that you're not comfortable with, it's going to add, a feeling of uncomfortability, a feeling of challengement, which is going to be good for you.
Okay.
Because you're going to want that, especially with the role I'm trying to, land when I graduate from university. I need that like feeling of like uncomfortability and like a new level of thought train and process, even if it's not regarding specific information that may be important for my major. It's still going to develop certain psychological factors, I feel like, that can help me deal with uncomfortable circumstances to where I want to be in life.
Gotcha. Is there anything else you'd want to say about pairing courses, having the learning community, having the same students in all the classes or in the two classes?
Maybe like a specific test or a specific survey needs to be done before a student jumps into a learning community. Like seeing if like it applies for like the way they want to like not conventionally view the terms of education more so, which
So like what kind of questions would be on the survey, do you think?
Like, are you one that like strives for like engagement with the new, like just basic stuff like engagement with a new learning community, or engagement with where you like does this align with where you want to be? Like, are you comfortable with the learning community? Because I really didn't know that I was even in.
Yeah.
So just like generic information, maybe like a certain test that regards intellect too, because you could always go deeper in detail and in depth on certain subjects and topics and make it more difficult. But that's just me. I'm always striving for more. So, and like, are you willing to apply yourself?
Do you feel like the learning community was more work or less work or just different work?
I feel like it was interesting work.
Okay.
I don't feel like it was more or less.
That's a good. I like that qualifier. That's good. It was interesting work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's more or less.
Okay.
I just feel like, for me, I can get work done faster if it's interesting. Even if basic work, generic, coursework may be easier, I'll probably get the interesting work done faster. It's just how my brain operates.
Very cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming in. Thanks for talking through. And I know you're mid-semester with this one. But yeah, thanks for talking through learning communities and kind of the new experience of it and sharing some of your insights from the class. So